Black Hollow, a town shrouded in perpetual twilight. The fog clung to everything, a thick, suffocating blanket. It seeped into your clothes and chilled you to the bone. The town was small, barely a dot on the map, but it held secrets, dark and ancient secrets. At the heart of Black Hollow stood the clock tower. Its shadow stretched long and menacing across the town square. The clock was old, its gears rusted and groaning, its face cracked and weathered. It hadn't told the right time in decades. Some said it was cursed. The townsfolk avoided the clock tower. They spoke of it in hushed tones, their voices filled with fear and superstition. They said that when the clock struck 13, something evil stirred in Black Hollow. Something best left undisturbed. The wind howled through the empty streets, carrying with it the mournful toll of a distant bell. The clock tower loomed over the town, a silent sentinel to Black Hollow's dark history. Midnight, the witching hour. A lone figure emerged from the swirling fog. He was tall and thin, his face hidden beneath the wide brim of a fedora. A long black coat billowed behind him. He carried a single suitcase, its leather worn and scuffed. The stranger walked with purpose, his gaze fixed on the clock tower. He didn't seem to notice the oppressive fog or the eerie silence that hung in the air. He moved like a phantom, his footsteps soundless on the cobblestone streets. The suitcase hummed, not loudly but enough to be unsettling. It was a low, rhythmic thrumming, like the beating of a giant heart. It seemed to pulse with an energy that was both alluring and terrifying. The stranger stopped at the foot of the clock tower, his head tilted back, his eyes fixed on its darkened face. The humming from the suitcase intensified. A shiver ran down the stranger's spine. He had arrived. The only inn in Black Hollow was called the Whispering Pines. It was a rambling, dilapidated building with peeling paint and crooked shutters. The windows were dark except for a single flickering light in the lobby. The stranger pushed open the heavy wooden door and stepped inside. Behind the dusty counter sat a woman. Her face was etched with wrinkles, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. She watched the stranger's every move, her bony fingers tapping nervously on the countertop. A name tag pinned to her shawl read Martha. "Evening," the stranger said, his voice a low growl. "I need a room." Martha hesitated. "Don't get many visitors this time of night," she said, her voice raspy, "especially not ones carrying luggage like that." The stranger smiled, a slow, unsettling grin. "Don't you worry about my luggage, ma'am," he said. "It's just a few personal belongings." Martha eyed the suitcase warily. "Well," she said finally, "we do have one room available, but it's number 13. Most folks avoid it, say it's unlucky." The stranger's smile widened. 13 sounds perfect," he said. He placed a gold coin on the counter. "And some information, if you please." "How long has the clock tower been broken?" Martha's eyes widened. "You don't want to go messing about with that clock tower," she whispered. "It's cursed, I tell you. Been that way since '89. Ever since—" She stopped abruptly, her face paling. She glanced nervously at the suitcase, then back at the stranger. "I've said too much," she muttered. "Room 13 it is. Don't say I didn't warn you." She handed the stranger a rusty key and pointed him down a darkened hallway. As he walked away, she swore she heard a faint humming sound coming from the suitcase, a sound that sent chills down her spine. In the small fog-drenched town of Black Hollow, the clock tower struck midnight, though no one could remember the last time it had worked. The townsfolk whispered of its curse, but no one dared to speak of it aloud. That night, a stranger arrived, cloaked in shadows, carrying a suitcase that seemed to hum faintly, as if alive. Gap 2S. The stranger checked into the only inn, the Whispering Pines, and requested room 13, a room that had been locked for decades. The innkeeper, pale and trembling, handed over the key without a word. As the stranger ascended the creaking stairs, the hum from the suitcase grew louder, resonating through the halls. Gap 2S. By dawn, the stranger was gone, leaving behind an empty room and an open suitcase. Inside the suitcase was a single ancient photograph of the town square, dated 1889, with every resident standing solemnly, their eyes hollow and black. The townsfolk who saw it recognized their own faces staring back at them, unchanged, as if time itself had frozen. Gap 3S. The clock tower struck once more, and the fog lifted, revealing the town square exactly as it appeared in the photograph. But this time, the square was empty, and the townsfolk were nowhere to be found. The suitcase, now silent, sat in the centre of the square, its lid slowly closing on its own, as if sealing a secret too dark to ever be uncovered. Gap 2S. Yet the echoes of their whispers could still be heard, lingering in the air, a haunting reminder of a mystery that remains unsolved. The town of Black Hollow, once bustling with life, now stood as a ghostly relic, a testament to the stranger and the cursed clock tower that had sealed their fate. Gap 2S. And so the legend grew, a chilling tale passed down through generations, of the night the clock tower struck and the town of Black Hollow vanished without a trace.